Have you ever felt like you're on a journey, but you're not exactly sure where you're headed? Well, that's really the heart of Michelle Obama's memoir, Becoming. This isn't just the story of a first lady. Nope. It's a deep dive into that constant, sometimes messy, but always fascinating process of evolving into who we're meant to be. Right from the title, she's asking us something huge. What does it actually mean to become? And what she suggests is it's not some finish line you cross. It's not about being a certain thing. It's all about the constant growth, the changes, and, the often surprising ways our lives unfold. And right at the beginning of the book, she hits you with this. It's so powerful because it sets the stage for everything that follows. It's all about perspective, right? The facts of our lives, well, they are what they are. But the real power is in the story we choose to tell about them. So where does that journey even start? How do you begin to forge an identity? For Michelle Obama, it all began on the south side of Chicago. This first part of her story is about those foundational moments that took her from a small city apartment all the way to the imposing gates of Princeton University. She uses this incredible phrase to describe her childhood home. It was filled with the sound of striving. And she means that literally. It was the sound of her great-aunt's piano students downstairs clinking away at the keys, often clumsy, maybe a little off-key, but always, always determined. That sound became the soundtrack to her family's ambition. So this became her game plan, her strategy for success. She became what she calls a box checker. You have to remember, for a black girl from her neighborhood, success felt like it had to follow a very clear, established path. You get the good grades, you get into the top schools, you get the prestigious job. It was a methodical way to navigate a world where the rules weren't always set up for you to win. And this just perfectly captures the two completely different worlds she had to learn to live in. On one hand, you've got home, the warmth, the realness of these feisty dinner table debates, but then she steps onto the Princeton campus and into what she calls the apparatus of privilege. I mean, it's a totally foreign world with its own unspoken rules and traditions. Now, this was a huge moment for her. A high school counselor literally told her that she wasn't Princeton material. Can you imagine? For so many people, that would have been it. But for her, it just became fuel for the fire. She basically decided, no way. I'm not gonna let your limited view of me change what I know to be true about myself. So that determination, it got her through Princeton and then Harvard Law, putting her right back on that box-checking path. But you know how it is. Life sometimes has an unexpected swerve in store. And for her, it was a moment where the whole focus was about to shift from me to us. So look, by any external measure, she'd made it. Big time. She had the corner office with a view of Lake Michigan, a great salary, the prestige of working at a top law firm. Every single box had been checked. But inside, that feeling of satisfaction, it just wasn't there. Something was definitely missing. And then the swerve walks right into her office. A summer associate that she was supposed to mentor, this guy named Barack Obama. He was brilliant, yeah, but also a little late, and, he seemed totally unimpressed by the whole corporate ladder thing she had worked so hard to climb. He was on a completely different wavelength. This was his whole worldview, It came from his time as a community organizer. He had this deep belief that our individual stories are what connect us, and that true power comes from using those connections to make real change. I mean, that's a universe away from her world of billable hours and corporate memos. So she did it. She made the swerve. And it wasn't just one big decision, it was a whole series of them. She pivoted away from that clear path of money and prestige and chose something a little messier, but way more meaningful to her. She left the law firm, started mentoring young leaders with public allies, and then worked to bridge the gap between the powerful University of Chicago and its own community. Every step was a redefinition of what success looked like. Okay, this leads us into the third act of her story, where she has to step onto the national stage. And here, the whole challenge of becoming takes on a brand new dimension, because now she has to figure out who she is under the brightest and, let's be real, often the harshest spotlights imaginable. The 2008 campaign was just a brutal, brutal introduction to public life. All of a sudden, she wasn't just Michelle Obama. She was a target. She was getting hit with this relentless barrage of attacks, being turned into a caricature, her words twisted, her patriotism questioned. She talks about this feeling of watching a total stranger, a distorted version of herself, being presented to the world. And out of that absolute trial by fire comes this guiding principle. When they go low, we go high. And this wasn't just a catchy phrase. It was a strategy for survival. It was their moral compass. It was a conscious choice to respond with dignity and grace and to refuse to get pulled down into the mud. This really gets to the core tension of her time in the White House. How do you stay your authentic self? Michelle Robinson, the girl from the South Side, while at the same time inhabiting one of the most public and scrutinized roles on the entire planet. The challenge wasn't to pick one, but to find a way to let them both exist, to integrate them without letting one erase the other. So after 8 years in the White House, the question of becoming doesn't just stop, it evolves again. It's no longer about becoming the first lady, but about what lasts, what's left when the titles are gone and the platform changes, what actually endures. A huge part of her work was using that massive platform to fight for issues she cared about so deeply. And one of the biggest was global girls' education. I mean, look at this staggering number, 98 million. It represents all the girls out there who are denied the very same thing that had propelled her own life forward, an education. And this brings us right back to the heart of her entire message. Her story is really a call for all of us to embrace our own full, complicated truths. The swerves, the doubts, the parts of our story that don't fit into a neat, perfect narrative. She's arguing that this isn't the mess we should hide. This is the very stuff that makes us who we are. And in the end, the book leaves us with this final, powerful idea. There is real power in allowing yourself to be known and to be heard. That, for her, is how we become. By sharing our stories, by listening to others. It's a process that truly never, ever ends. So the book's final question isn't just for her, it's for all of us. How are you becoming?